On News Hour tonight, Nigerian professors to retire at 70 with improved package in a new federal government deal.
According to her family, Aisha
husband in Kano tells a story of his wife's death after alleged medical error. Outrage over federal government's $9 million push against Christian killing claims. On the foreign scene, 32 killed as crane crashes on a moving train in Thailand. Hello and welcome to News Hour on Trust TV. I am Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. The federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, have signed a new agreement aimed at improving the quality of the university education system and ensuring stability. The signing and unveiling of the agreement took place on Wednesday at the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TET Fund Conference Hall in Maitama, Abuja. The ceremony was attended by several dignitaries, including the Minister of Education, Dr. Maruf Alausa, and the Minister of State for Education, Professor Suwaiba Ahmad. Speaking at the unveiling of the agreement, ASUU President Professor Chris Piuna said that despite the ASUU's history with the federal government, it remains optimistic that things will be different this time. He expressed hope that the union will not need to issue a strike threat before the federal government implements the agreement reached by both parties.
We want to tell you and your colleagues in government that you have an ally in ASUU who will support you to work to make Nigeria a better place for everybody. We are ready to work with you to make life better for Nigerians. Even though plurality of unions has been recognized as the right of workers by the third alteration of the Constitution of Nigeria and Article 87 of ILO, the employer is not empowered to have multiple negotiations with new unions or associations in the case of collective bargaining. The unions are required, and we want the Ministry of Education to listen to this. The unions on campus are required to come together to elect representatives for collective bargaining. Education is the bedrock of any modern, productive, and prosperous society. That is why, for the first time in the history of this country, a sitting president took full control, full ownership of this long-standing challenge that confronted the educational system and accorded its leadership attention to getting us to where we had to go. For decades, unresolved enumerations concerns, welfare gaps, and recurring industrial disputes disrupted academic calendars, undermined staff morale, and threatened the future of our young citizens.
From education to health, the Abubakar Imam Urology Center in Kano is under fire over the death of a patient, Aisha Umar, after an operation that her family says went wrong. Her husband, Abubakar Muhammad, alleges that errors made during surgery in September 2025 led to the complications that later claimed Aisha's life. The case has triggered public anger and fresh calls for accountability in Kano's health sector. Abdulaziz Ibrahim now reports.
According to her family, Aisha Umar was admitted to the urology center months ago and underwent surgery. Soon after the operation, she began to complain of intense abdominal pain. Each time she returned to the hospital for follow-up, doctors reportedly told her the pain was normal and prescribed only painkillers.
After the operation, we normally go back for normal follow-up. So when she complains of pain, they say normally it do happen like that. When they operated you, sometimes you do have such kind of pain. So that's what they have been telling us often. So it's just she has just been managing the pain But on that Friday, it becomes serious that she cannot bear it, so we have to take her to emergency and for further treatments.
That was when doctors made a shocking discovery. A pair of surgical scissors had been left inside her body during the earlier operation.
Well, it was discovered recently, that was on Sunday, when the X-ray was done. It was discovered that the scissors was left from the previous operation that was carried out in September last year.
Doctors moved to prepare her for another surgery to remove the object, but before that could happen, Aishatu Umar died. The Kano State Hospital Management Board has since confirmed the incident. 3 health workers directly involved in the surgery have been suspended from clinical duties. The case has also been sent to the Kano State Medical Ethics Committee for further investigation and possible disciplinary action. While the state government says it will carry out a full probe, Aishatu's family insists that those responsible must be held to account.
No, we are just seeking for justice. Already we have consulted relevant authority for that. So that's what I can say on that.
The death of Aishatu Umar has again raised serious questions about safety, oversight and professional conduct in public hospitals and the price patients pay when standards fail. Abdulaziz Ibrahim, Trust TV News, Kano.
Well, the federal government of Nigeria has hired a Washington-based lobbying firm, DCI Group, on a $9 million contract, which is about 13.5 billion naira, to help communicate its efforts to protect Christians in Nigeria to the United States government. Documents filed with the United States Department of Justice, reviewed by the Cable, show that the deal was facilitated by Astar Legal, a Kaduna-based law firm acting on behalf of the National Security Advisor, Nuhore Badu. Signed on December 17th, 2025, the agreement authorizes DCI Group to assist Nigeria in explaining its actions to safeguard Christian communities and maintain the United States' support in the fight against jihadist groups and other threats in West Africa. Under the contract, DCI Group will receive 750,000 naira monthly, which is about 1.125 billion naira, totaling $9 million, around 13.5 billion naira over 12 months. The deal runs for 6 months initially, with an automatic renewal clause. Financial records show that the federal government has already paid $4.5 million, about 6.75 billion naira, as a prepayment for the first phase of the contract. Moving on now, the African Democratic Congress, ADC, has condemned the federal government's reported $9 million expenditure on the U.S. lobbying services, describing it as scandalous and indefensible. The party says the move reflects misplaced priorities at a time Nigerians are grappling with worsening insecurity and economic hardship. ADC National Publicity Secretary Bolaji Abdullahi argued that no foreign propaganda campaign can conceal the government's failure to protect lives and property. The ADC also criticized the outsourcing of diplomacy while key ambassadorial positions remain vacant, warning that selective messaging abroad could fuel sectarian tensions. ADC therefore urged the government to focus on security, governance, and restoring public trust. Moving on, the few changes made by Nigeria's newly passed tax laws are unlikely to have any major impact, according to Taiwo Oyedele, chairman of the Presidential Tax Reform Committee. The 4 laws covering the National Revenue Service, the Joint Revenue Board of Nigeria, the Nigeria Tax Administration, and the Nigeria Tax Act took effect on January 1st, 2026, amid controversy over alleged alterations from the versions passed by the National Assembly. Concerns escalated after opposition lawmakers raised issues of discrepancies between the gazetted laws and those approved by the legislature, prompting calls for a suspension of implementation. In response, the House of Representatives released the certified true copies of the laws on January 3rd, 2026, affirming the provisions approved by lawmakers and clarifying public confusion caused by the multiple versions in circulation. Speaking at the 2026 Economic Outlook organized by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, Oyedele downplayed the significance of the changes, arguing that they do not affect the core provisions of the legislation.
You must take ownership for the outcomes, whether they are good or whether they are bad. In this, my small assignment, I've seen all of it. The days they will praise me, and the day they'll say, where is the guy's address? Arrest Taiwo now. He forged documents. You have to take ownership for the outcomes. I wouldn't come out and say, no, it's not me. We did not, it was someone else. You can't finger points. That is not leadership. You take ownership, including consequences, whether they're good, whether they're bad. I say that leadership is not just about service. It's also about sacrifice. You have to be willing to make sacrifices. So this is accountability. And I think it's important for us to be on the same page.
As we earlier reported, the federal government has entered into an agreement for $9 million lobbying contract with a United States lobbying firm through a legal company, Alta Legal, based in Kaduna, which they entered in respect of the national security as well as Nuhu Ribadu. Joining us now via Zoom to discuss this development is a public commentator, Emmanuel Osemeke. Good evening, Emmanuel Osemeke. What do you make of this reported contract, $9 million for, if you like, propaganda and lobbying and, if you like, narratives that we are hearing?
Good evening, my brother. Thank you for having me. Look, the reality is that the federal government of Nigeria must always be seen to do what is in the best interest of Nigeria, what is in the best interest of the government. Lobbying is a legal way to persuade, convince, right the wrongs, or even to tell the stories as the government desires it to be. With regards to all the information that is at the disposal of the U.S. government led by Donald Trump, and of course the Republican-led Congress and Senate, where public hearing was held in regards to the Christian genocide claim in Nigeria. The reality is that the federal government began late, but what you see now is the last straw to help show up the image of the Tinubu-led administration in Nigeria, which the United States government, and also to help assuage Trump from further strikes in Nigeria. So that's what you clearly see there. So he's trying to use the lobbies organization to prevail upon the Congress, members of the Congress, so that Nigeria will have some face saving within the U.S. government.
Well, as a public commentator, let me just recap for you some of the claims made with respect to the Christian genocide issue, if I recall very well, were made by Christian clergy, Nigerians, bona fide Nigerians, at the United States Congress. So what stops the federal government then from also having its own delegation to come and to go and, if you like, debunk whatever claims that were made that time? Why the lobbying now?
Unfortunately, don't forget that Nigeria didn't have an ambassador in the U.S. For a very long time, for 2 years, upwards of 2 years, since the Tinubu administration came into office.
The embassies were there.
And
the embassies
embassies were there, but But the reality is that the job of ambassador is completely different from the regular staff you have at the embassy. So those were some of the failures of the administration. And we will not forget that some U.S. Delegation also came to Nigeria to have a first-hand information on the genocide issue. What has happened is that over time is that the U.S. government had got a lot of information, and Nigeria didn't have the opportunity to defend themselves because we didn't have the diplomatic channels that should have done that for us. We reacted when the U.S. government accused us. Then, of course, we had a delegation led by the National Security Advisor go to the Congress and also had a conversation with the Secretary of War, as they call it today, Pig Hegseth. But of course, the damage had already been done at the time. So what you see now is that the federal government is trying so hard to ensure that they save face, because already what the U.S. government have on their table is first-hand information, and of course, all the allegations that came from all the clergymen showing that there are clear genocide activities going on within and around the trouble zone. So I believe the federal government is acting late, but it remains to be seen how much the lobbying will affect the resolution and the position of the U.S. government as regards the Christian genocide.
Will you say now that it will be money well spent? Will it assuage the United States government, the United States Congress, that indeed the federal government is doing something, or that there was no Christian genocide at all?
The reality is that the U.S. government sent a delegation, and they were in Benue, they were in other parts of the north, where this information came from. They went back to the U.S. with certain information. The first thing I believe is that the information that they went back with was not good for the government of Nigeria. And that will also inform the decision of the U.S. President Donald Trump to carry out more strikes in Nigeria. The U.S. government carrying out more strikes in Nigeria is a heavy indictment on the government of the day. And there's no government worth its onions that would want that kind of thing to happen to them. And more so, the fate of the Venezuelan president and his wife. I mean, look at how the man was picked up like a little child from his government house and being tried in the U.S. So every government in the world is very careful with the Donald Trump-led administration. So I believe that's one of the reasons why the government is churning out that heavy amount to lobby. And of course, you know what lobbying does. What lobbying does is to buy some members of the parliament who will be able to speak on your behalf, who will be able to push forward the position of the government and see how it will soften, the position of the U.S. administration with regards to further strikes in Nigeria. Because, that will really, really spell doom for the administration. And don't forget, election is around the corner.
Yeah. And will you say now, the fact that Donald Trump is reported to have now, if you like, rephrased his allegations or his condemnation of Nigeria, saying that indeed it was the killings were not just Christians, but even Muslims died. Will you say that could be part of the positive effects of this lobbying firm? Because I understand some money has already been paid to them, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. The U.S. government, once you have the right lobbyists and they are able to do the yeoman's job that they are supposed to do, trust me, you will have some result. But you see, it goes beyond just the lobbying. The federal government of Nigeria must act with speed. They must nip the insecurities, in the board. They must not allow it to continue to fester. What has happened over time is that the government played ostrich in some instance, and that allowed the insecurity to fester and permeate the rural communities. Yes, there are Muslims that have also been killed. But the reality is that we cannot continue to allow human lives to be wasted the way it's been wasted in the last 10 years without recourse. The federal government must show cause that they are in charge, they are in control. We've lost soldiers, we've lost civilians, we've lost Christians, we've lost Muslims. We should not allow that to continue. That is just the simple truth.
Emmanuel Osemeke, public commentator, thank you so much for joining us on News Hour with your insights.
Thank you, Mohammed. Yeah.
Moving on, at least 23 residents have been kidnapped by bandits in Gajit village, Sabon Birni local government area of Sokoto State. Sources say the attackers, in large numbers, stormed the community around 2 a.m. on Wednesday after outsmarting local vigilantes. A relative of the victim said the bandits waited until residents had relaxed their guard before launching the attack. Initially, 28 persons, mostly women and children, were abducted, but 1 man and 3 minors were later released. Residents alleged that poor response from security operatives, despite distress calls and appeal for increased security presence. Police authorities say they are yet to comment on the incident. At least 1 elderly woman has been killed as bandits intensified attacks in parts of Borgu local government area of Niger State. 75-year-old Amina Abu Shaki, wife of the Sarkin Noma of Kabe community, was reportedly shot dead on Tuesday night while hiding in the bush during an attack on the village. Residents say the assailants invaded the community around 8 p.m., looting shops and carting away food items and valuables. In a related incident, 4 people were killed on Friday when bandits attacked Damala village in Same local government area, burning houses and rustling livestock. The Niger State government has ordered residents of villages around Kainji National Park to vacate their homes within 2 months to allow security forces flush out terrorists within the area as hideout. Authorities say the move is aimed at restoring peace and preventing further loss of lives. "17 more worshippers abducted from the Ekwa Church in Ayetoro Kiribunu, Kogi State have been released following negotiations led by the community and affected families. The latest release brings renewed hope, thought it reportedly came at a high financial cost, with substantial resources spent to secure the victims' freedom. The abduction occurred on December 14, 2025, when more than 30 parishioners were taken during an attack on the community. Earlier releases included 7 victims on January the 1st, 3 on January the 12th, and 14th on January the 13th, 2026. With the latest development, 24 of the abducted worshippers are now free, while 13 others remain in captivity. The Ayetoro Kiribunu Development Association has pledged to continue efforts to secure the release of the remaining victims and appeal to the public for prayers and support to ensure their safe return. This is News Hour on Trust TV. Coming up after the break, water scarcity, dilapidated roads, crippled communities in eastern Jibia, Katsina State. We have more news after this break. Don't go away. Welcome back to News Hour on Trust TV. Let's take a look at our top stories again. Nigerian professors to retire at 70 with more improved pay package in a new federal government deal with ASUU.
According to her family, Aisha Umar was admitted to the urology
after alleged medical error. We're returning back to this story of the federal government and ASUU deal. We just told you that Nigerian professors will retire at 70 with improved pay package. But we have a professor of political science and international relations at the University of Abuja, Professor Adeni Adeyinka, who is joining us to x-ray this new deal. Professor Adeni Adeyinka, welcome to News Hour.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Thank
Professor.
you for having me with you this evening.
Yes, as a professor yourself,
with
it is good to have you. What do you make of this new deal, federal government and ASUU? And what is that extra package
Same here.
that the deal is coming with for professors retiring at 70?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. It was a sharing news that what was agreed upon, around December.
Okay, Prof, we seem to be having some challenges there with the audio of network of Professor Adeni Adeyinka. If the network improves, we may bring him back, but if not, it will be another time. Thank you, Professor Adeni Adeyinka, for coming on News Hour. Moving on, as part of our coverage of the upcoming Daily Trust Dialogue, we're taking a hard look at the forces that have shaped Nigeria's democracy since 1999. The Fourth Republic began with high hopes after years of military rule. Nigerians expected accountability, fairness, and a government that will serve the people. But over the years, a long trail of scandals has followed those in power, from police chiefs to oil deals, defense budgets, and pension funds. These cases have not only drained public resources, they have also reshaped how Nigerians view leadership and trust in government. Abdullah Ahmed, in this special report, explains why.
Nigeria's Fourth Republic began in May of 1999 with hope, but it soon picked up a trail of scandals that shape how people see power. In 2005, the first big shock hit. The Sitting Inspector General of Police, Tafa Balogun, was arrested for stealing 10 billion naira police funds. By August of that year, he had pleaded guilty. The man meant to fight crime has become the headline. Then came the oil money. Between 2003 and 2010, global oil firm Halliburton paid over $180 million in bribes to Nigerian officials to help them win gas contracts. Foreign courts took action, but at home, the cases faded. Then in 2011, another oil deal exploded. It was called OPL 245. Over $1 billion meant for Nigeria ended up in private hands after a deal signed in April of 2011. The money trail led to prominent politicians, oil firms, and middlemen. The case dragged on for years across Nigeria and Europe. By 2013, corruption had moved to the National Assembly. A lawmaker, Farouk Lawan, was caught collecting part of a $3 million bribe during a probe into the fuel subsidy scam. The very panel meant to expose fraud became part of it. That same year, Nigerians heard about 2 bulletproof BMWs. Aviation Minister Stella Odua approved 255 million naira for them. The country was in a recession talk at the moment. The bill still went through. Also in 2013, the central bank governor said the National Oil Company, the NNPC, failed to remit huge oil earnings to the treasury. The figure ran into billions of dollars. Instead of a full audit, the whistleblower was pushed out. Then, in 2015, the biggest security scandal broke. Over $2 billion meant to buy weapons to fight Boko Haram insurgency was diverted. The man at the center was the National Security Advisor to the President, Sambo Dasuki. The story became known as the Dasuki Gate. Then came pensions. Between 2011 and 2015, funds meant for retired workers vanished. The face of the scandal was Abdurrashid Maina. Money for all people's survival went missing, and not much has actually been done about that. Well, governors were not left out of Nigeria's Fourth Republic corruption history. James Ibori, Joshua Darie, and Jolie Nyame were all convicted between 2007 and 2018 for stealing public funds. Some served time. Many kept their titles. From 1999 to date, the pattern stays the same. Big money, weak checks, long court cases, and very little closure. That is the shadow hanging over Nigeria's Fourth Republic, a system that made billionaires of a few and left millions more asking where their money went.
Thank you, Abdullahi. Moving on now, the impeachment move against Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy Ngozi Odu has suffered another setback as two more lawmakers have withdrawn their support for the process. Barili Nwako, representing Kana Constituency 1, and Emilia Amadi of the Obiakpo Constituency 2 announced their decision barely 48 hours after two other legislators took a similar step. The lawmakers, while noting alleged constitutional breaches, said they were persuaded by interventions from respected leaders and stakeholders to prioritize peace and stability in Rivers State. The latest development, 4 of the 26 lawmakers who initially endorsed the impeachment notice have now distanced themselves from the move, increasing calls for dialogue over confrontation.
To begin with, we are part of the notice of allegations of gross misconduct against the governor and deputy governor because they truly infringed severally of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Worse still, the governor has seriously abandoned the agreements entered into in the past with the supervision of Mr. President in a bid to finding a lasting solution to the Constitution infractions. This casts serious doubt on why any person should trust him. However, we have been inundated with calls from some of our leaders and Rivers people begging that we seek a political solution to this problem created by the governor and the deputy governor. On this call, we hereby state our willingness to look at a political solution rather than an outright removal of the due. We call on our members to also consider this approach.
I align myself with all that my colleague, Honorable Barili Nwako, the Deputy Minority Leader of the 10th Assembly. It will interest you to know that I represent the FCT Minister, His Excellency, Chief Barrister Ezenwonye Sowike. He is my constituent. And I want to let you know that before coming for this press briefing, that I informed him. I told him of it. But he said to me that I should do whatever my conscience tells me to do, line with the Constitution, and keep all agreements entered with the supervision of Mr. President.
The House of Assembly in Rivers State distancing themselves from calls for the impeachment of Governor Fubara. They now said they prefer increasing calls for dialogue over confrontation. Moving on now, we will return back to the federal government ASUU deal on professors now to retire at 70 with more better package. We are now, our engineers are successful now. We can speak to Professor Adeni Adenka, Professor of Political Science and International Relations at the University of Abuja. He's joining us via phone. Professor Adenka, welcome back once again. We are apologies for the challenges you had earlier.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, what do you make of this? Yeah, what do you make of this new deal, the federal government ASUU deal on retirement of professors with better package? First, what do you make of the deal? Two, what are these better packages? Any? Do you have an idea?
All right. My take on this new thing that government has done for ASUU is that it's actually long overdue. For if you remember very well, it has been in the past 16 years. And, for this agreement to come to the point of signing, at this time, it will welcome, development, the caring news for members of ASUU and professors and other, colleagues, all over the federal, universities in Nigeria. Now, if you look at the 70 years of professional retirement and sincerely speaking, it's an improvement, but it's not yet it's still a process, that's going in the direction of a positive direction, which if government will implement their promise and the time the ceremony was there and just supported so many stakeholders who are supposed to be part of the implement of this agreement. So if government will continue the way they agree, and in the next 3 years we will do and that, this will lead to reverse in the fight we had in the great recently. So because most of the Nigerians or most of the Nigerian scholars who actually migrated out of Nigeria are prefer to stay in Nigeria if there are better conditions. So now, if they will go through and consistent government will do and they committed to it, what we're going to see is that the part of the brain challenge that we had over the years. And secondly, it will bring about attracting others from all over the world to the part of the development of inclusivity actually brings dynamics and brings about well-grounded process system which we had in Nigeria in the empire. And so that is that. And secondly, as we have raised the question, those packages largely focus on many things. Talk about stopping the problem of end academic allowance, permanently, that we no longer become an issue, of the government and the federal government have to. Now, apart from that, there is also what we call CATA. CATA is a consolidated academic fee allowance. Consolidated academic fee allowance is going to be another component of the former formula. So that will be for building, for publication, for internet access, for a professional, for academic, professional body, because it learns society membership,
okay.
And then for people. So this is what this part is meant for.
Yeah.
Previously, from the media, salary that is being paid to economic staff, do the same thing that was due to internet access. Most universities don't have internet, in the campus.
Yes, Prof, I can see that the packages are good, but the ASUU president did mention something, the sticky, if you like, cat and mouse relationship between ASUU and the federal government. He is saying,
yes,
as long as they don't have to resort to another strike or another
yes,
threat of strike. So do you see a situation whereby the federal government will now own up to all the agreement?
Well, that's all, I said earlier. If government will be committed to this agreement,
And, because it doesn't end here. Apart from this one, provision, because we are not yet here. There are provisions for the party, which we bring about, 1% of the GDP, for the cash and development, funding is not the rest of them. But this is both as a promise. So it's able to be cosmetic, like the realistic. So which we are hoping for. And the good thing is that implementation starts from this January. And secondly, in the course of signing the agreement, those stakeholders who are supposed to be part of the implementer were invited for the meeting. Vice Chancellor and our national salary income and wages commission were there to approve and all the rest of them. So we could see, a kind of seriousness of the kind of federal government. The whole thing, the board in line with the board of it is still with the federal government. So if government will and approve this thing and implement it and allow the people to run the full lesson, that will be done. Then apart from that, there are other issues. The issue of the economy, the economy of federal government, the university has been, has just been in principle, but in practice, government see, interfere with the economy of the National Council of the university. Managed by Chancellor, actually, I'm not, because federal government will allow you to have free content like that. So there's some green area that government need to, to prohibit and intention about that there will be harmonious, because I know that government, from what they have done, in recent time, because if you go to the 2012, that agreement was negotiated. And it was until now, 2024, when Yayane Mohammed, committee was inaugurated, that we still have, they have come to this point of agreement, now.
Professor Adeni, Professor Adeni Adenka, thank you so much. Professor Adeni Adenka, Professor of Political Science and International Relations at the University of Abuja. Thank you so much for your insights. He was talking about the federal government ASUU new deal on professors now to retire at 70 with better packages. Moving on now, 4 people were injured on Wednesday afternoon after a crash involving a Bullion van and a Toyota Camry with no registration number plate in Abuja. Rather, with no registration number plate. Eyewitnesses Hassan Umar said the crash happened around 2 in the afternoon when the Bullion van hit the Camry from behind. The impact badly damaged the car and caused the Bullion van to somersault 3 times before it landed inside a drainage. Umar said 3 persons in the Bullion van were pulled out first. The cash in the van was moved into an escort vehicle, which later drove away from the scene. Police officers at the scene said they acted on a distress call from the control room and have opened an investigation to find out what really caused the crash.
This Camry, they from where this vehicle is parked. So as they come, they just this vehicle, this Camry they from that place. Me, I was here for this place. I see everything happen. Why this vehicle coming? They are this and that now just coming. Like 3 times. So there they will try call the just something ambulance. There they try call another motor. They carry the one way there inside, put it inside lost, just move. Come on. Now just help them. Come my brother carry motor for Jaitu to come and they carry people get injury. They carry they go hospital. How many people get inside this car? Now 4 people. That one come? That one police 3 police inside, driver and 1 police for back. The remaining one escort where they follow them.
Back to politics and governance, Nigeria returned to civilian rule in 1999, starting with the 4th Republic, now the longest period of uninterrupted democracy after years of military rule. That alone is a big achievement. But more than 2 decades on, many Nigerians are asking a harder question. Has democracy actually improved their lives? With rising poverty, insecurity, and failing public services, many feel the promise of 1999 is still out of reach. Trust TV's Ibrahim Ismail spoke with young Nigerians on how they see Nigeria's democratic journey. Here's his report.
When democracy returned in 1999, the mood across Nigeria was hopeful. After years of military rule, people expected peace, jobs, fairness, and a government that would listen. 26 years later, democracy has survived. One major turning point came in 2015 when an opposition party defeated a sitting president at the polls. For many Nigerians, it proved that vote could matter and that power could change without violence. But beyond that milestone, many citizens say the bigger promises of democracy remain unmet.
Because the military government ensure people follow orders, people follow the rules, and people that embezzle money they are dealt with. In democracy road, there's nothing like that. Somebody can do whatever he likes, embezzle money and all. You get.
One clear gain of the Fourth Republic is freedom of expression. Compared to the military era, Nigerians now speak more freely, criticize leaders, and use the media to demand accountability. Since 1999, the media space has expanded with private radio and TV stations, online news platforms, and social media, giving citizens new ways to be heard.
The freedom of expression is one of the most tremendous achievements that we have seen in Nigeria now. Because under the military, you express yourself, definitely you run for an exile. You find yourself in another country talking against the government. But in current dispensation, for example, we've seen a lot of people who talk against the government, which is, normal, and then they are still here in Nigeria. Nobody is chasing them.
Political awareness has also grown. More young people now follow politics, vote, and engage in public debate. But for many families, that awareness has not translated into a better life. Poverty remains widespread. Jobs are scarce. The cost of food, transport, electricity, healthcare, and education keeps rising. For millions of Nigerians, survival has become harder, even as elections continue. To many young people, this gap between democracy and daily life is the biggest frustration.
Which Nigeria we need to think twice to know the right person to follow. Because our leader keeps on deceiving us today, there tomorrow. Keeping Nigeria as one spot, which we need to think. But for this moment, in this election coming now, I think Nigeria will have wake up.
In our national budget, there's a lot of money and investment put into education, but we are not seeing it in the systems. Public schools are not paying the teachers properly. And so if you employ someone to work and you pay the person properly, he's going to do the work efficiently. But in Nigeria today, the public schools, which are supposed to be the ones doing the actual work, they are not paying the teachers well, and so they cannot give proper outputs.
Across the country, bandit attacks, kidnappings, school abductions, terrorism, and communal violence have made ordinary life unsafe. Promises of safety have been made by successive governments. But for many communities, fear has become normal.
Security remains a serious challenge for us as a country. And now that we are having a partnership with some of the most sophisticated military-equipped countries like the United States of America, I think we'll be able to get to a level where we can suppress and deal with the issue of security.
For Nigerians, the Fourth Republic stands as both a victory and a warning. Democracy has endured, but its true test is not how long it lasts. It is whether it can finally deliver safety, opportunity, and dignity to ordinary people. For now, that promise remains unfinished. Ibrahim Ismail, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Residents of Jibia local government area in Katsina State have raised alarm over acute water shortages and bad roads, a situation that is hampering socio-economic activities in the area. Communities in Agangaro, Ondariko Ward and Kusa, along with dozens of surrounding villages in eastern Jibia, are reportedly facing untold hardship due to poor roads and inadequate water facilities. Trust TV's Abdullahi Ahmadi reports that the lack of infrastructure is not only affecting economic activities, but also posing serious health risks to residents.
Most rural dwellers in this corridor rely heavily on water from streams, ponds, stagnant water and dams, sources that are often unsafe for drinking and domestic use. Across villages in eastern Jibia, it is common to see women and children fetching water from these unapproved and often unsafe sources. Residents say they have been neglected in terms of provision of social amenities and political representations. This is one of the water sources we have for drinking. You can see it is unhygienic, but this is all we have, and this is all we use. We are calling on the government to intervene immediately. Our community has over 10,000 people, not including the surrounding villages. For decades, we have lived without clean water, motorable roads, schools, and health facilities. We deserve all these basic amenities. Inhabitants of Eastern Jibia, primarily hoarders and traders and farmers, stress that water is essential for their livelihoods. Roads to and from these communities are dilapidated and in urgent need of government intervention. The Kusa Dam, constructed decades ago, remains the only source of water for dozens of communities including Dawana, Foragiriki, Gago, and Gogalo. Residents rely on the dam for irrigation, livestock, and other domestic purposes. Farmers are appealing to the Katsina State government to rehabilitate the dam and equip their irrigation sites with modern facilities to boost agricultural productivity. Despite our voting strength, the people of Eastern Jibia are often neglected when it comes to political appointments. Leaders only come around during campaigns. That aside, we need better roads to improve our local economy. The Bugaji Gangara Kandawa feeder road linking Batsari to Jibia at Ruma town and the Gahoni Usa Agangaro Matsai road up to Dankama in Keita local government area are completely impassable despite decades of democratic rule. We urge the authorities to rescue us from this situation. Experts have warned that drinking contaminated water poses serious health risks. People in this part of the country are calling for a better quality of life through approved infrastructure and access to basic social amenities. Abdullahi Ismail, Trust Television News, Katsina.
On foreign news, at least 32 persons have been killed after a crane collapsed onto a passenger train at a China-backed high-speed rail construction site in Thailand. The incident occurred on Wednesday in Nakhon Ratchasima province, northeast of Bangkok, when the massive crane fell onto an existing railway line, causing the train to derail and catch fire. Rescue teams worked through the wreckage to extract passengers trapped inside tilted carriages as smoke billowed from the scene. Thailand's health ministry confirmed that 32 people died, 3 are still missing, and 64 others were hospitalized, including 7 in critical condition. Authorities said the train was traveling from Bangkok to Ubon Ratchathani with 195 passengers on board. The accident occurred at a construction site linked to a 600-kilometer high-speed rail project backed by China under the Belt and Road Initiative. Thailand's Prime Minister Anutin Chanvirakul has ordered a full investigation to determine the cause of the collapse and ensure those responsible are held accountable. In sport, Sadio Mane struck a late winner as Senegal edged Egypt 1-0 in the Africa Cup of Nations semi-final in Tangiers. Mane's 78th-minute goal capped a dominant display by the former champions, who controlled possession against a cautious Egyptian side. Mohamed Salah was well marshaled by the Senegalese defense and failed to make an impact. Senegal will now face either hosts Morocco or Nigeria in Sunday's final, extending their recent dominance over the Pharaohs. And with that, we conclude tonight's News Hour package. And on Trust TV, do not forget to follow us across all our media platforms and join our YouTube live stream for more news. Thank you for watching. Good night.